I need to do that. I need to have music. Okay, so we're live right now and 0 people right now, so we're good. So this is sharing. You can refresh your. We're let some people come in. Hi everyone. I'm gonna let some people come in, and in the meantime, we're going to share to everywhere that we want to share. By the way, everyone, this is Dr. Sarah Jefferis. Did I say that right? Jefferis, not Jeffries?
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're joining us.
All right, so we'll be on in a second. And you guys, Sarah's going to tell us her incredible, powerful, empowering story. So as you come in, if you want to share to your pages, go ahead and do that. It's definitely a story that changes lives. This is what we do with Thrive Talk, is we change lives through our stories. So go ahead and share it, and that's what I'm doing in the meantime until some people start coming in. We're super excited to be here. We were just dancing 2 minutes before getting on. We were dancing and we were getting pumped up. So we're going to bring it.
We are.
Shared it everywhere already. Yeah, let me see. Let me see. If you're here, say hi so I could see you. I'm happy to have you here. It's going to be an awesome, awesome transformational story for you. All right. Well, that's good enough. All right. So let me see. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Oh, this is another Sarah, by the way, that I'm saying hi to. I'm saying to Sarah, meet Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. All right.
Thanks for joining us. I can't see that when people come in. Do you only see that?
No, you can see it on your page. If you shared on your pages, you could be watching from your page. Just lower the volume. And you can watch from your page, and you can read the comments as they come up on your page too.
Okay, I think I'm going to do that on my phone.
Yeah, like that's what I'm doing right now. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Thrive Talk. If this is the first time you and I meet, my name is Sarai Nammur. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. And I do this show on a weekly basis, bringing stories to you of people who have transformed their adversity, their traumas, their pains, and turned it into their life's purpose. And that is so important for me to bring these stories for you so that you could see that you too could do the same thing. And also, it is so empowering to transform our pain and the things we went through, because it doesn't make it that we went through that for nothing. If we turn that into our purpose, we regain our power and we decide what we're going to do with that. And we also showcase our resilience. We showcase what we're capable of doing and all these things. So I have an amazing champion. Ooh, I put it to right here next to me. And her story is another example of what happens when you choose to transform your story and turn it into your purpose. When you choose to stand on it, squash it, and turn it into your purpose. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And as I have up here, Dr. Sarah Jefferis is a writing coach, a poet, an editor, and a badass mama. So I'm sure a lot of you could identify with that so far. You're already identifying with it, but go ahead, guys. If you're out there, just go ahead and share this video to your platforms as well, to your profile and page, so other people could hear this story and we could spread the news that, we can overcome the things that happen to us, and not just overcome and survive it, but we could thrive off of it. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So. Yeah.
Stacey has joined us. Thank you, Stacey.
I saw Stacey there. Hi, Stacey. Stacey's like one of my favorite people, so she's awesome.
Totally one of my favorite people.
So I'm like a bit of a weirdo. So I just want to say I'm Sarah Sarai. You're Sarah. Sarah's on here and Stacey's on here. So all the S's are here. I don't know, that just came to my mind. That just came up. Letters. All right, so Sarah, so I know I introduced you as writing coach, poet, editor, badass mom, all of this. Why don't you say a little bit more about like what you do? Because you really do so much, and I want everyone to know like what you do and how you serve people.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I am a single mama of 2 fabulous teenage girls. and it's great to be in Ithaca raising feminists. And I'm a poet and an author. I write essays for this magazine called Urban Centennial. And with clients, I work one-to-one in helping them move from one page to 5 pages to an entire book. Or I work with clients who are really excited about getting their PhDs. I am super happy to help people move into the spaces of higher ed. And when they're in higher ed, if they're first gen like me, I love helping them figure out how to get more scholarships and move through higher ed in a way that doesn't create more debt for them. I love working with students, and I also have over 20 years of working as a visiting lecturer at Cornell and Ithaca College and some universities in upstate New York. So I'm a writer, an author, a poet, and a writing coach. And also with my business Right Now, I called it Right Now because everyone always says to me, I don't have time to write. And I'm like, how about now? Like in this moment, right now. And I actually think that the universe gives us moments to write along the way. And we can either take that choice and write in those 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, or we can let those moments pass by. And then we miss the opportunity to write, right? For me, writing is the way that I was able to move from so much complex trauma as a child to post-traumatic growth as an adult. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I will say that I have not always had the courage to be a writer, to be a poet, to be an author, to work with writing clients. I've certainly not always had the courage to read poems aloud. Or talk about my childhood in Williamsburg, which is where I grew up in Virginia. Or even talk about how writing was the thing that really kept me from jumping off a bridge. And I don't know if those of you out there have had those moments where you thought, I'm kind of done. This is the end. And you've stood in a space. And I know I'm getting real heavy real quick, but I just want to be like really upfront that writing is the thing. You know, I wrote poems to write myself off a bridge. I wrote poems to write myself out of the space that I was in and to move into a different space, a different headspace, a different physical space. And I had no idea if I was going to do anything with those poems, but I knew I needed to get the poems out, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I also want to say there was a time when I could barely make it through school. And I'm super pumped to have a PhD because that was not expected of me whatsoever. And so literally there was a time that I was not expected to get a PhD or make it through a school day. And when I was more interested in being kind of underneath the bleachers at the school that I went to, and a time, I don't know if you all have ever felt like this. I want to be like, raise your hand if you have. A time where I felt completely abandoned by God.
Right.
And a time where I felt like I didn't even see myself as the image of God. And a time that I kept my head low and my voice quiet. And, you know, because I survived incest as a child and rape as a teenager, it did not seem like assault when a married Episcopal priest kissed me in a parking lot after a conference in Montana. It felt like he saved me. And I thought I could give consent at 14. And I wanted to read a poem from my first book about that moment. And the book is called Forgetting the Salt. Is that all right?
I saw it. I saw that on your website. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
So the poem is called Sheets of Locusts. That's like an Old Testament reference, you know, like when things are going batty and crazy, that we think that frogs are going to fall from the sky or locusts are going to fall from the sky. It's called Sheets of Locusts.
Okay.
Foot of mountain, Missoula, Montana. And your kiss made me dry and pale as a monkfish. There were no sheets of locusts or frogs walloping yellow lines. The sky did not break into boils, though perhaps it should have. Your firstborn would not die in your wife's arms in Virginia for 3 more days to come. There were no signs, not even the blue rectangle telling us how long we have to have a respite. Only a kiss and a 20-year difference between us, staring like a moose. And this before I sold cider and ham biscuits to visitors on first night. Fife and drum beating the streets in Virginia before I lost Walker, struck on the curb by a drunk, before I watched your second born, before we looked at houses, before the vigil to end the war and the trip to Washington, where at the concierge desk you promised, told me not to name us. And so that's a poem that I wrote about that moment when someone kisses you and crosses a line and you don't even really know what's happening in that moment, right? And I think about that now because, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and if a man was 20 years older and tried to kiss her, it would be very bad. I would be behind a plate glass window. It would not be a good thing. But in that moment, I thought I had consent. I thought, oh, this man wants to kiss me, right? And I never once in that relationship, I never once thought of myself as a victim. I felt chosen. And I think that's true. Yeah, Stacy, been there. I think that's true when if we work through moments of assault and then another person assaults us, it may not feel like the first assaults, so we don't recognize it as such.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And that's so important to clarify, because you're giving other people that may be watching permission to not blame themselves, because it's true. If you were already trained, basically if you're a victim of incest at an early age, your brain is already trained by that experience that it's normal. It's familiar. Let's call it familiar. It's not normal, but it's familiar. So then the familiarity of it makes it okay. Like, it almost makes it like you can't say no, or why would you say no? And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't register the way it registers in someone else's mind. So I'm so glad that you said that, because someone could be watching this and carrying around a lot of guilt or a lot of self-blame, but you have to have some understanding as to what happens in your brain and in your mind and in your thoughts when you're groomed and trained this way. Yeah. So thank you for saying that, and just continue, because this is your story's teaching people stuff. I'm writing everything down because I'm already thinking about things I want to talk about. So go ahead.
At 14 and 15, I felt chosen because I was fed. I was offered a place to study outside of the house where my brothers and my stepfather wouldn't leave me alone, right? So it was freedom, And if I offered me the moment to stop hitchhiking to Virginia Beach, and the priest invited me to a Bible study and a youth group, he made me leader of a confirmation class. I can remember the first day he looked at me and he said, "You have potential. You have more potential than you know." And I laughed at him. I was like, "You're so full of," oh, can I swear? I was like, I was going to say, "You're so full of shit." Because I laughed at him, right? And he was like, "I'm serious," right? And I didn't know that was part of the grooming.
It is.
And I didn't know that I could actually have potential when that relationship was over, right? So the other thing is, I was given money to babysit his daughter, and I grew up incredibly poor in the South. Sometimes there were lights on, sometimes not. I loved church because there's food at church, right? Yeah, Stacy, we don't know boundaries after the first violation. Exactly. No one said anything about boundaries when I was a kid. No one said, like, here's the boundary, here's the line, right?
There is no boundary and there is no line.
Yeah.
There is no boundary.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. At a young age, your mind creates reality when repetition takes place. And unfortunately, both good and bad experiences become reality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was his babysitter, right? Because he was an Episcopal priest and I was his babysitter. And I loved that little girl. I loved being able to babysit her. I loved being able to take care of her. Thanks, Brian, for saying a great show. And, I loved hanging out with her. And the other thing that he did, right? The other thing that this priest did was that he gave me poems, right? He gave me Auden and Dickinson. There's a Dickinson poem that's like wild nights, were I with thee. Wild nights would be our luxury. I would go to church and we would do the passing of the peace and we would shake hands, and in his hand would be a poem line or the key to a hotel room or $50 or a note from his daughter about babysitting, right? So I always knew that I was getting messages, and that's how he sort of kept
he knew
me.
what you needed. Yeah. He knew what you needed. He knew what you needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And he also said to me that God made me a writer, and to write was to honor that gift from God. Now, here's the thing. I think that's true. I genuinely think that I have a badass gift being an amazing writer, and that gift came from God.
Yeah.
But the message of that came through a pedophile. Hi, Carrie. Oh my God, Carrie, I miss you so much. Good evening, beautiful ladies. Hi, Carrie.
Can you speak to how confusing it is when our predator gives us that gift of that message and at the same time does something terrible to you? Can you talk about that confusion? Because a lot of people that experience these types of things, which it could be from a family member, a parent, or it could be from someone like what happened to you, it becomes so confusing, especially at such a young age, that you're already confused and you've already been misled, that if it furthers, like it disempowers you further, because then you feel guilty. There's a lot of guilt involved in that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. The thing about this priest was that he was incredibly gentle. So it never felt like rape. It never felt like assault. It never felt like the things that my brother's friends did. It didn't feel like violation. Even though it was something awful done to me, it didn't feel awful, which added to that confusion, right?
Yes.
Of where he said, like, you can be an amazing writer. You can write yourself out of this town. You can write yourself to college. And I was like, I can't write myself to college. Are you kidding me? I'm only passing English class. And he was like, no, you can, right? So to believe in me, and then the cost of that believing in me was my body. Right. It was very confusing.
That was powerful. That one statement was extremely powerful. You have no idea I don't know if you know how powerful that statement is, because the same way that you're saying the cost of him believing in me was my body. There's so many young girls out there, children, that the cost of receiving the love of their parent is their body. And they're confused because it's not experienced as rape. It's experienced as gentleness, love, and it's so confusing because there's also the story of where you fall in love with that person. And there's girls that fall in love with their dads or their brothers or whatever it is, their uncle, their stepdad. And that gentleness is part of the grooming. It's part of the grooming. It's so important for people to understand that. It doesn't always come as brutal, aggravated assault. It doesn't always come in that way. It's so important for people to understand that as well.
Yeah. And the other thing about him was that this was the early 90s, right? So he was like, this is the AIDS crisis, and this is the AIDS quilt, and this is liberation theology. Like, he broke my world open and said, the world is bigger than Virginia, right? He taught me about social justice, and he said, now we're going to go to good evening. Hi, Angel. Thank you for joining us. One crazy moment where he would write dialogue sermons, him giving a sermon and then my part. And I would stand up in front of 500 people as a 15-year-old girl and disagree with something that he said. And we would have this dialogue back and forth. And I thought I was chosen. Like I did. I was like, I'm chosen, I'm chosen and I'm loved. And I'm safe.
That's so powerful. That's I want to know, does that resonate with anyone out there? And is this giving you a new understanding? Because everything that you're saying is so powerful. That's exactly what happens to the girl that falls in love with her father. She's the chosen one, and she's lucky. You know, you're lucky, and you're receiving that love. And then how difficult it is later on in life to realize, no, that wasn't it. Like, that is such a difficult.
Yeah.
You'll get there. I'm sure you're going to get to that point, but it's so.
Yeah, because at 15 and 16, your brain is where it is. It's age-appropriate behavior, right? For me to say, oh, this man is paying attention to me. Oh, this man is making sure I'm fed. Oh, this man is making sure I have clothes. Oh, this man is making sure I have food. Oh, he's making sure there's money for college, right? Like, all of that is age-appropriate behavior. So he was both priest and father and lover, all mixed into one. So it was very confusing for me. But I grew up in a house of secrets. Right. I don't know if that's true for anyone else online. But when you grow up in a house of secrets, you already know how to keep them.
Yes, that's powerful.
You know, he didn't have to say to me, "You're my secret." I already knew.
Right.
I already knew. You know? And so when I was 18 and completely brainwashed and groomed, I actually thought he would leave his wife and marry me. And I laugh at that now. I'm like, how did I think that? But that's what I wanted, right? And at the same time, you know, from 17 to 18, when you go, from 17 to 18, he showed me houses and he talked of rings. And he said, you're going to apply to college and you'll go to school here and then you'll graduate. And then he'd like planned it all out. And I believed in that vision, you know? And so when I was 21, somewhere in there, he broke it off. And I remember we were standing on a bridge in Virginia, and he said to me, it's not that I don't love you. It's that we're different ages and I can't do this anymore. And by that point, it had been 7 years, right? Like 14 to 21. And I remember being stunned. I remember being like, what? Because I thought we were going to this bridge because I just finished school. And, you know, as a side note, like, he paid for a lot of my undergraduate education. And I thought every semester I would have to drop out because I wasn't quite sure if the loans and the tuition would come through, you know? So I owe my education to myself, but I am also weirdly grateful because he paid for some of that.
Right.
Like, that's a mind space, right? Yeah. I wouldn't have known at 19 and 20 to say, no, don't pay for my education.
Right.
Right? Because I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a wife. Those are the two things.
So far, I want everyone to pay attention to, like, if you're a mom or if you have had an experience like this, or you have a niece, or not just a niece, nephews, it doesn't have to be only girls. It could be boys. Pay attention to, in the story, pay attention to the ways that he used to give you what you needed to groom you. And so a big way that this happens is through money, to the, you know, and it's not okay for someone to give your child $5, $1, or anything like that without parental permission, without parental knowledge, because you never know that. You never know what's, and you know, if you've experienced something like this, or for myself, that I have an agency that is a trauma-informed agency, and we work with foster kids and everything. It really causes you to think in this way all the time. You know, you're always trying to, you always have a protective shield, and it just has to be this way. It just has to be this way. So I'm really glad that you're pointing those things out with it inside your story. You're actually identifying ways in which children get groomed, children of any age.
Yes. And they get groomed often by people in power.
Yes.
And No, like I didn't know the word groomed. It's not like I was like, oh, am I being groomed? Right? Like it wasn't like that, right? It was I'm being loved, I'm being fed, I'm being taken care of. Why wouldn't I choose that?
And a good distinction is to say people in power don't have to be people. The idea of who's in power is very subjective. So it could be a 5-year-old. For a 5-year-old, your 15-year-old brother is a person in power. So it doesn't literally need to be a person in power. If I perceive you as in power, I'm already predisposed to do as you say, because we're sort of taught that way as well. So that's actually a very important point also to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you were heartbroken. You were heartbroken
yeah.
at that point on the bridge. You were shocked. You were heartbroken.
Yeah, and I literally remember like falling to the ground and being like, "Oh my God!" Right? And I remember watching him walk away. And I said early on, right, like writing helped me get off the bridge. Writing saved my life. In that moment, after that, I stopped talking, and I stopped writing for weeks. I just, I went back to my mom's house, and I got very quiet, and I just sort of pulled way, way, way back. And, my mom is an amazing woman, and she did the best she could. And she is super powerful when it comes to asking questions about social justice. And she taught me that as a white woman, I needed to be really aware of my privilege and unravel it to bring everyone else up around me. Like, I am super grateful for everything that I know about racial justice and Du Bois and the literature, like Black American literature from my mom. But she didn't know that any of this was going on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or if she did, she didn't say anything. Right? So she didn't ask. Hey, Courtney, thank you for joining us. She didn't ask, right? She didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask why I was quiet. So why don't you read another poem, if that's all right?
Yes, yes.
It's called Forgetting the Salt, which in the South, the expression is like, I'm forgetting where I come from, or I'm forgetting how to season. I'm forgetting the like vital ingredients, right? And this is a poem that I wrote for the priest's daughter, right? Because when I pulled back and got quiet and thought very seriously about ending my own life at 21, and I'm so glad I didn't, by the way. Like, I'm so glad that I failed at that. So glad that I failed at that God was with me in that moment.
I'm so glad too. We're all glad. We're all glad. You're such a gift.
I missed his daughter, right? Because I didn't have any, couldn't then say like, your father won't talk to me, or it's too like, it was done. Like, the whole thing was done, right? So she wondered why I stopped talking to her.
Of course, it's abandonment.
Yeah. This is a poem that I wrote for her, and it's asking her to like come, like, can I explain? Kind of like, can I explain what happened to you? Oh, Carrie, thank you. I'm so glad. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it has a couple swear words in it. I hope that's all right. Forgetting the salt. At 18, I was fucking your 38-year-old father in the choir loft, behind the altar, in the chapel, on the gravestone, in his office, anywhere your mother wouldn't imagine or recognize the remnants. You were 3, watching Barney. I would tell you this if you could step out of the orange vest from Target, but the airlines have canceled flights, a spring nor'easter is knocking, and your father has said no. Last week, you told your father you liked girls. He knows I left him on a bridge for a girl. He'd tell you he left me on the bridge for a girl who is not your mother, if he tells you anything at all. When you come to New York, bring the poems I wrote for your father, the ones he locked in the blue briefcase under the mission dresser. Yes, that one. Poems never lie. When you come, bring saltwater taffy and some Virginia peanuts, the kind you can hawk from the roadside. I haven't cracked a shell in 20 years. I am forgetting the salt. When you come, I will tell you how your father taught me to climb a fire escape at his parish, how to slide in an office window, how to take wafer and birth control in the same swallow, to crease a foundation in a bruise, to smile as if nothing happened, to check the baby monitor light so we could hear you coming down the hall. I've been listening to your footsteps across carpets, states, oceans, years. Come, dear child, when you are ready to be like the horse who lifts all four hooves off the ground at the same time. When you can hear the rhythm of the incident, the accidental, the intended, when you know for sure your father is not of himself in the moment he inhabits. No one is, not you nor I. We are not only of ourselves in the moments we inhabit.
That's
So I wanted
powerful.
to share that one, right?
I just want everyone out there to tell me what you thought. What were your emotions? Not even thought. What were your emotions when you heard that? Because I felt your pain. I felt your pain there. Your pain and your rage. It's like your rage. I felt your rage with that poem.
Yes. And that's not a poem I've ever read to her, right? Like that's in the book. It came out in 2008. She and I have never had that conversation. I still think of her in passing. I wonder how she is, you know? By the time I was standing on that bridge thinking I was going to marry him, I also knew that I was bisexual. I knew I kind of had crushes on girls. I knew that his daughter was also interested in girls, and I knew that that upset him, right? So raw. Thank you, Angel. Yeah. I think poems give us the place where we can tell our secrets.
Right.
I think poems give us the place where we can tell our secrets, right? Because we have these secrets we hold and hold and hold, and I can put them on the page. You know,
is so. And then it gets hidden in the art.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And also, you know, the echoes of trauma, of the trauma of my childhood, of the trauma of being groomed, have impacted so many decisions. And the more I write about the poems, the more I write about the trauma, the less impact they have on my daily decisions.
Of course. Of course.
Right? Right? Because after that relationship, I went on to choose really bad relationships. Or I could tell you, I went on to try to make purposeful relationships lifetime ones, right? I would meet someone, I would choose them, pick them, wounded, connected to them, right? Then I try to make it permanent, even though it was a purpose or a lesson that I was supposed to learn.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until I was in my middle 30s that I started to be like, okay, all of this early trauma is impacting daily decisions. And how can I, besides writing, how can I have it not have such a powerful impact on every single moment?
Yeah. and why do you feel that? Why do you feel that writing, the more you write it out, the less it impacts you? And how do you feel that works? How does that happen?
I think what impacts a decision I make is the moment where I go, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this? Every one of our poems of our life are raw. Yeah. And that rawness allows us to put all the possibilities down, right? Like, what if someone kissed my daughter? How would I feel? How horrible would that be? What do I need to do so that no one grooms my children? Right? Right? Because I'm a single mom with 2 kids.
Right. Daughters.
Living in New York. Yeah. So statistically, people who want to groom children, they would look for a single mama.
Right.
Right. You know? And so I think that there's a correlation between the moments in which we write down something, in a poem or a story or a journal, or even in art, like it's the making of art. It doesn't have to be words.
Mm-hmm.
That allows us to get out all of the feelings, but also all of the residue, right? Like art is that residue holder. So that when we go to make a decision, we can make the decision with present knowledge and wisdom, not with buckets of fear, present knowledge and wisdom.
Right, exactly. And what I noticed is that I was talking to you about you do, which you'll I guess you'll say it later on, but basically the stuff that you described to me that you do with your clients, which is it's poetry, but it's so therapeutic because it's basically what we call here in my industry, it's narrative therapy. And what happens is that by putting it on paper, even if you don't express it through your words telling someone, but by putting it on paper, it's no longer you. As long as it's trapped, that secret is trapped in you, you are the trauma. You are the problem. You are all these things. You are the holder of all the shame, guilt, trauma, and everything. But when you put it on paper and you're able to pick up that paper and read it, it's outside of you. You're no longer that identity. And it helps you towards not being the identity of I am a victim, or I am this person, or I did it, or I caught, or whatever eyes that we do that are not helpful, which a lot of those eyes were given to us by the perpetrators and that type of thing. But for anyone listening, whether it's this type of trauma or another type of trauma, writing is so powerful because you're able to look at it objectively from the outside. And for the first time, you're able to see it's not me. I'm not that thing. I'm not what happened to me. So that's why what you do, even though you're not really saying it's trauma therapy, it's extremely therapeutic. Like everything you do, even the questions that you ask and everything is so therapeutic. So therapeutic.
And I want to talk a little bit about that too. That's all right. I'm not what happened to us. The other thing that I think happens on the page is that we get to tell the secrets. So it's not just freeing and liberating, but all the secrets that we've held like get released. And so then all of a sudden there's just more like spaciousness. There's just more energy, like at the cellular level, right? The page then holds the secrets, even if we never show that page to anyone, even if we never show that art piece to anyone, right? The release of it is incredibly freeing.
You release the toxin. Otherwise, it's eating you. It's eating you up inside, literally to the point where you will become physically ill. Like when you keep those secrets inside of you, your liver, your organs start getting affected. And this is real, people. This is real. It's so important. It's so important to do this, and that's why we're here doing this together. And that's why you have the courage to do this. That's why you didn't jump off the bridge. That's why you're the more powerful part of your story isn't even what happened to you. It's your resilience and you're coming out of that. Your story of survival is what I'm really passionate about, because your story of survival is someone else's guide as to what they could do with themselves, or anyone listening. It's so that's why I keep stopping and telling all these little points, because in your story, there's like a whole handbook on how to survive this and how to not let it happen. Because also you mentioned your daughters, right? You mentioned your daughters, and in that moment, you don't, at 15, we think we're so grown, right? But when we have a child, we're like, oh, how could I have ever? It helps you also have compassion for yourself, because you're like, I know that, so she can't go through that, and he wouldn't be able to go through that. How did I go through that? Like, how did I survive things? And your story didn't begin with him; it began at home with the incest. And how did you survive that? Like, and how are you here, so capable, and so giving? And so everything that you are, how is that possible? That's the gift in your story, the hope that hope that resides in there. And I just hope everyone in here is able, that's watching this and is going to watch this on the replay. I hope you're able to capture the gift that you're giving us with this story.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Some of my resilience is meditation. Some of my resilience is that I believe that poetry can be a verb. So I will say, like, poet the fuck forward, like move through the image, move through the poem. Some of my resilience is that I want to try again. If something's like not working, want to get it right. And so some of the resilience is like wanting to like try again, try again, try again, try again, try again, right? So if I'm in a relationship and it's not working and I get out of it, then I want to try again and love better and love differently and love myself better. Oh, Angel, thanks for saying I'm such a gift. I wanted to go back a little bit and just talk about some of the work I've done with clients in workshops and individually. We do a lot of that reflective journal writing, that narrative therapy that you're talking about. One of the exercises that I want to offer to like anyone who's listening that I do with clients and that I've done with students where, oh yeah, Rhonda, thank you. Getting it out on paper helps you see the big picture. That is very true, right? Like the big picture of priest who's 20 years older grooming child versus Kiss on the Mountain in Missoula, Montana, which is like the small sort of picture.
Yeah.
So for reflective journal writing, one of the exercises that really helps people think about the trauma being outside their body and outside of their cellular being, where we write in first person, and I do this a lot myself, like this is part of my resilience, this exercise. Write the recall of my experience. So I might write a recall of surviving incest. I might write a recall of, you know, the fact that my brothers would offer their friends money for me, right? Like I was sold very early. And I don't talk a lot about that, right? I just don't talk to my brothers. And it was the South, and there's a lot of stereotypes about what sisters will do for their brothers' friends. And that's an intense, you know, space of my childhood. But I will write about the first person recall of that. And then I will write an encouraging letter to a friend. So I might say, "Dear Stacy, I am so sorry that your brother accepted money by letting his friend kiss you. I'm so sorry that he bargained how much money he could get if his friend got to touch you. I'm so sorry that happened to you when you were 12 years old and you didn't even like your breasts and you just wanted to run away," right? So to write like a loving letter to the friend with a similar experience, right?
Yeah.
Because more women have been assaulted and touched and violated in ways than we know.
Yeah.
And then in the third piece, you write a letter about the impact of the trauma. So the impact of my brother's experience with their friends has to do with I don't talk to my brothers, right? But the other impact is that when I see brothers and sisters getting along, I'm in great admiration. If I'm dating someone and they have a sister and they're loving to their sister, suddenly they're more attractive to me. It's also a measurement. How are they with their sister? Right? So that's an interesting dynamic between brothers and sisters that I now watch and question and measure in relationship to the impact of the trauma. The first person exercises first person. I had this experience. The second is, I'm so sorry this happened to you. The third is third person, right? The third might read something like, my middle name is Beth. The third might read something like, when Sarah Beth was 11, her brother Sean decided that he needed $100. And he reached out to his friends to see who would give him $100. And he pulled my hair back and made me give them a blowjob. And then he got the $100. Right? So it's that moment, that event, right? But it even wouldn't be it would be pulled her hair back. It would be the girl, right? So it's getting it out. Yeah. That's work. I mean, I just told you work I need to do, right? Because I switched from third to first really quickly, right? Work I need to do on myself, right? So that's the other piece about resilience. It's not like you're like, hey, I did this exercise once and I'm good. It's not like that. I do it a lot.
And that is so, everything you're saying is so powerful. That's so powerful because whatever happened to us, we're not that 11-year-old girl anymore. That 11-year-old girl is over there. It happened to her. And, you know, Stacy taught me this. That happened to her. And we're no longer that girl. So by you being able to do that, it separates you from that. It separates you from, I'm not experiencing that right now, because a lot of people still live today at 40, 45, 50, 60. I even met a woman that for the first time at 70 something, she told her story, which broke my heart because not so much of the story, it's because we all have a story. So what broke my heart was that she held that in there for 70 something years. And she even said it almost like in a whisper. That's how hard it was for her to get it out. But if we don't get it out and we don't do what you're talking about, we're still our body aged and we grew up physically, but we're still that 11-year-old girl that our brother pulled our hair back whilst we were giving a blowjob. We're still that person. So, guys, it's so important to get it out one way or another. And through writing is a safe way. It's a safe way. If you're not ready to tell someone, if you're not ready to go to therapy or tell a friend or tell your story or whatever it is, put it on paper. Tell the paper. Tell the paper.
Like painting is also another, or collage, right? Like it doesn't just have to be writing. The other thing that's amazing about putting it into art is we can change the ending, right?
Yeah.
The 11-year-old girl in a poem or a story or a painting gets to say no. Gets to say, don't pull my hair. Gets to say, back off, right? Excuse my language, but that just pissed me off. Stacy, the story pissed you off, or the
the story of your brother, of her brother, of the 11-year-old version.
Think about that now, right? I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I'm like, I can't even imagine that happening to her, right? But the thing about the page is we can change the outcome. So I have oftentimes written myself whole. Yeah, so true. I was scared for years and didn't like to kiss because I had a girl kiss me and I didn't like her when I was a kid. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I was about to say that. Thank you for sharing that, Courtney, that you're putting that out there. Everyone has their story, different stories, but we all have our stories. There's a purpose for all that.
Yeah. The other thing that I've noticed is that when I'm writing or when people are doing art, there is like the writing self or the art self that's connected to the higher self. So one of the reasons that it's so healing is, for me, we connect back to the divine. Yes. I had to do a lot of work to say there is still a God, even though a priest groomed me.
Right.
I'm still uncomfortable in physical bodies of church, like physical, the actual brick and mortar church building. Those buildings still make me really nervous. Mm-hmm. But I do deeply think there is the divine or the universe or higher energy or love. And I'm grateful to that divine being for getting me through this far, right? And hopefully for the next 40 years. The writing allows you to do not just the getting out of the trauma, but being able to connect back to the divine. One of the other exercises, if I can offer it really quickly, if that's all right, that I love doing is where you write a letter to yourself. And I got this from Elizabeth Gilbert, not mine. You write a letter to yourself in the voice of God or love, saying exactly what you need to hear.
Powerful. It's powerful.
Right. So mine might be like, dear Sarah, you are brave to go on here on Thrive Talk and tell this story. Look at you. You are breathing. The world hasn't fallen apart, and you told your story. I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. You are helping some other person who needed to hear this story.
And can you guys out there say that, Sarah, you are so brave to do that. You are so brave to come on and tell your story. It is so true. You are so brave. You have been so brave to come this far. You've survived. I mean, at the same time, you've survived all this. Man, you could do anything. Like, you can do anything. You've survived 100% of everything that has ever happened. So you are the badass. You're badass, not just mama. You're badass everything, to do that. And you are so brave to come here. And I know that you do this for the purpose of changing a life out there. Like, maybe one thing you said tonight opened up the world for someone. Maybe someone needed. We don't know who's living out there with the shame and the guilt and the secret.
Yeah.
And maybe you're the turnkey. You're that person who is gonna make it okay for them to tell their story, not even to the world, but on paper, and release that. Because you don't want to be the 70-year-old woman who says it, 70 something, because you've been having panic attacks and you're depressed your whole life, and then therefore your whole entire purpose for living got squashed because we're our greatest self holding this toxin inside of us. And you're giving people permission to do that. So Stacy says, yes, you are. Yes, she is. You're a badass woman. Angel says, absolutely.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. And I was thinking there are many girls and many boys too who have been abused by priests, who have been groomed by priests, who weirdly in this pandemic, when church is online, may suddenly have freedom.
Say it again.
Right?
Say it again.
So I'm thinking that there may be some young girls or boys who have been groomed by priests.
Yeah.
And weirdly now, when there is this pandemic, and at least in New York, all churches are online. There's not that like present getting together. There may be some young girls or boys who are freer and not having to be in the presence of the person who's abusing them every single Sunday.
Right. That also works the other way around. The other way. The other way around of that has been an issue since it all happened. The first thought with the pandemic and kids having to be at home with their parents all day.
Yes,
they're home with their perpetrators too, because they had to escape at school or even a way to tell someone.
Yes.
So it works.
I thought about that too. Yeah, that I've thought about like the girls who are sitting there with their brothers, right? Who are also home. And everyone thinks everyone's on digital school, right? Yeah, and I've thought about that, and I've thought about how like, what could those children do, right? Like, could the teacher have an office hour? Could the child write it in chat, right? Like, how does that child, or even the women who are being abused, right? How do they get it out or ask for help in this world of the pandemic?
Right? Well, that's exactly how. Through the chat.
Yeah.
Through the chat room.
Yeah, and through your center too. Like, I imagine that you were very busy.
Yeah, always. That never ends. That part never ends. It's an ongoing thing. That's why this conversation is so important, to raise awareness of it. And I know it's a difficult conversation. You know, maybe some people hear it and log off because it's too difficult for them to hear. But it's an important conversation. It's a conversation that gives people permission to speak their truth, and it's actually extremely common. So it's this is very, very common. And I speak to people that haven't released their story and they're still trapped in the guilt, the shame. I know young men that they don't want to speak about it. It's shameful or it makes them feel guilty. But these conversations are incredibly important, not just for the victim, but also for people here could one day hear this story from someone and not know how to handle it. And you're giving them insight and the tools to do that. So in many ways, these conversations are important. And it's also important to show you someone who survived that much, like Sarah. Like, this woman survived all of this, and she only told you a couple stories. In between those stories are many other stories that are in there, many other emotions, many other moments of despair, many other moments where you may have thought life is over. I'm not worth anything. There must have been moments of panic, all those, which are also the impacts of trauma. There's a lot that we cannot pack in. We cannot pack in a lifetime into this hour, but you're just a demonstration of resilience, power. The other thing that helped you that you haven't mentioned, but you're saying it in your story that I want to highlight is your mindset, your positive mindset. There's a part of you that always look for the good. There's like an innocent side of you, but not an innocent side as far as being dumb or naive. even though of course we are that way when we're younger, but there's an innocent side of you that believes in the good. That's why you still believe in God. That's why you
Yeah.
still believe in love. That's why you're still searching for the brother and sister that do get along good. Because you could have easily said, I'm always looking at brothers and sisters, and I always wonder, is that really happening? But you didn't say that. You said, I look at the brother. So this mindset of yours and that view of yours didn't get taken from you. And what happens with abuse is that we get stolen. Something that we lose isn't just physical. It's also the way we view things. And that was never taken from you. You never allowed that to be taken from you. So I want to honor you and recognize you for that.
Thank you.
People have the power to do things to us, but they don't have the power to take away your perspective. Yeah. And when you close your eyes, you are able to close your eyes, and no one could take your world from you. And they didn't take that from you.
Yeah. And I thank you for saying all that. That's amazing. I was thinking about how there were different moments when I felt like there was no God, right? And when I felt abandoned by God. Oh, Stacy, thank you for saying I give you strength. When I felt abandoned by God, or when I would say, like, God, are you kidding me? Like, I definitely said that when the pandemic happened. But like, there are different moments where my connection to God and spirit had to be unhinged from my relationship to the priest. And I had to believe again that I was a writer, right? Like, it's not like I started writing at 10 and 11 and 12 and kept writing. Like, there were years where I stopped writing. There were times in my life where I've stopped talking. My relationship to language was deeply impacted by the person saying, you can be a writer, come here, now we need to have this moment, right? Like that, those were bound together, and I had to pull them apart and say, I can still be a writer. And the other thing I think that's interesting about this is that when I was younger, I wanted him to apologize to me. I wanted him to say, I'm sorry I kissed you when you were 14. I'm sorry I told you you had potential. I'm sorry I groomed you. Oh, thank you, Rhonda. I've just recently been comfortable sharing mine publicly, small groups. Yeah, publicly is a whole new ball game. I was saying to Sarai earlier that the live piece on the screen is a whole new game versus like in a room of 5 people. I'm so proud of you for doing that, Rhonda. When you share your story in that small group, there are women who have a similar story who are grateful to you.
Yes. So you wanted him to apologize.
Apologize, right? So the last time I saw him, I had just given birth. I was, 6 months postpartum, first child. Gone back to Virginia. I don't go to Virginia often. Gone back to Virginia. Agreed to coffee, and I thought he would say, "I'm so sorry. I took your formative years. I apologize for crossing a line. I apologize for having a boundary. I like breaking the boundary. I apologize. I see all of that." And so I said to him, if you could do it all again at 14, and when I was 14, like if you could do it all again, would you do it all again or would you not? And he said, I would do it all again. I saved you from being a pregnant, drunk, abortion-ridden, girl under a bridge. I saved you. I would do it all again. And I was stunned. I was like, what? Because I thought in the years passing,
what?
I was like, you didn't save me. I was like, you're a human being who's in a priest role. God saved you.
Did you say that?
No, I just got up from the table. I said, I'm appalled. And I got up from the table and walked away. But it's interesting because I think we need apologies in order to be resilient. We think we need apologies in order to keep moving forward. If only this person would say sorry. If only this person would say, I'm sorry. I think, well, I can move forward whether you apologize to me or not. Right. And my need for your apology may be true, but is not a mountain. It's a small thing that appears now and then. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about resilience, which I just started doing, and I thought it was totally hokey, and all these people said to do it, and I was like, But now I'm like, what took me so long? I just wanted to share that, is that I have a board next to my bed, and I'm I'm also inspired by my friend Kate, whose house I'm in, who has this as well. And it's affirmations, right? And one of them says, walk by faith, not by sight.
Okay.
One of them says, be the parent you didn't have as a child. Another says, prayer is dope as fuck. Another says, you can open many doors when you close the negative one. So that's right by my bed. And she has a bunch by her in her house as well. And those statements I read in the morning, first thing. And that helps me be grateful, right? That helps me be like, okay, I can walk by faith, not by sight. Okay, I can be the parent, right? Because I'm trying to parent 2 teenagers and still parent the 15-year-old girl.
Yeah. It directs your thoughts. It directs your thoughts early in the day so that that's something that you can hold on to for the whole day.
Yes. Yes. Which is incredibly important.
Yes, of course, especially when we're bombarded by negative thoughts. If you're bombarded by those thoughts, it's just so important to have that in front of you. That's why everyone's so addicted to motivational quotes, because we need them. We need them like medicine. We need them like medicine, you know, to combat the other stuff in our mind.
Yes. And also to hold on to when we have a memory that's really painful, right? Because even though I survived all that trauma, I have not forgotten. You know, like those memories are still in my brain. They're just not activated all the time.
Right.
But they're still there. There's still things I don't like, right? Like I can't stand wind chimes because that's associated with stuff as childhood, right? There's certain smells that I can't, right? So there's still pieces in there that I need to work through and memories that are there, but I don't have them every day. And every time I have them, I write them down, right? This is why I don't like a wind chime. This is what a wind chime is, right? Because I'm trying to get that out, right? I'm trying to get that sensory detail out.
Of course. So you have so much support from everyone here. Everyone, I can see like the gratitude and the appreciation from everyone. Sarah Joel says, it's hard to believe that these things happen to you. It's amazing to see how others have overcome their past trauma. Exactly. And that's why I do this, because when we turn on the news, we get all the bad news and we get the news about the person that didn't overcome and continue to be a victim and also victimizes others. But there's actually more stories of people like us. There's more stories of people that overcome. There are more stories of people that turn their pain into their purpose. There's more stories of people that are champions, whether you're a champion for your children or a champion to a million. It doesn't matter, because every life counts. And I just want to bring these stories out to everyone, that there's more of us. There really is more of us. Like, don't believe the hype that the news wants to give you. All that negativity, that's not real. That's just what I rather hear this story. It's more sizzle to me than the story of what the thing on the news. So this is news to me. This is for me giving everyone the news. Like if you were able to give people the news right now of your story, if you were able to tell them 3 things that you want them to hold on to of the truth, not the truth that the news gives us, but the news that someone like yourself gives, like what would you say to them?
God is bigger than one man in a collar in a building. That's the first thing. God is bigger than a priest or a pope. God is bigger than that. Courage comes in ways that surprise you.
Yes.
I will often think, I don't have courage. I don't have courage to do this. And then courage shows up. Courage comes in ways that surprise you.
Yes.
Also, the third thing I would say would be take quiet time to yourself, right? So like I knew that I was going to do this, and then I have some of tomorrow morning and this evening blocked off, because I will need quiet space to calm myself and to re-energize, right? Because in the sharing of your story, the vulnerability is important, and it also requires you to mend yourself afterwards. So quiet time to yourself Courage comes in ways that you don't expect it. And God is bigger than anything we can imagine.
And with that, I want to thank you for having the courage to live, for having the courage to keep going, for having the courage to tell your story. And all of that the courage that you're talking about is the gift that you're giving to us. It's a reminder that we too have that courage, and we need to exercise it and let it ride along with us. The strongest people are also the most courageous. Strong. Think about that, guys. The strong. Many of the people that are here are exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of you out there, everyone out there are. I know many of you, your stories, and you're also riding along with you're bringing your courage along with you, and no one knows what's really happening. You might have a very weak day, but you're showing up, and I just want to honor everyone out there for doing that as you. And do you want to let's tell everyone like how they can reach you, how they can connect with you.
Yes. And thank you so much for having me. This has been like an amazing hour, the best hour of the day.
I loved it.
Better than so it's been really lovely. And thank you everyone for your comments and your support and your saying that I'm brave and showing up. It's so beautiful. You can find me at www.sarahjefferis.com. You can also find me on Facebook as Sarah Jefferis or Dr. Sarah Jefferis. You can also find me at Instagram, Sarah Jefferis at Right Now, and Brave Beauty and Light. Oh, Sandra. You can also find me on Twitter at Sarah Jefferis as well. And if you are interested in working on a book, or if you want to talk about a poem, or if you have an idea for a book and you think, is this a good idea? How can I make it a book? Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, a lot of people out there I know have a book inside of them. Everybody here has a book inside of them. Angel says, courage comes, and that I love that. We're gonna stop. I love that the courage comes, and it does come. So throw yourself out there, guys, because as you throw yourself out there, the courage is gonna come along with you. There's no other choice. It's gonna have to come. It's gonna have to show up, right? So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you. So I want to say that. Thank you so much for being here, and again for doing all of this. Let's see what else. I love you, my friend. Keep healing. Thank you for sharing. Beautiful evening. Thank you,
Angel.
All right.
Thank you, Sandra. Right.
Good night, everyone. I hope this. Tell us in the comments. I'm gonna sign off, but tell us in the comments. What part of this is a takeaway for you? What could you use from this story to help you with your story? And sort of help you move along. And thank you for being here with us. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.